Picture this. You water your plants every day, you give them sunlight, you even talk to them sometimes. But they still look sad. The leaves turn yellow, the stems stay thin. Nothing seems to grow the way it should. You start to wonder if you have a black thumb. But here's the truth. It is not you. It is your soil. Your soil is starving. It is tired. It is crying out for help. And today, I am going to show you 5 incredible plants that will bring your soil back to life. No chemicals, no fancy products, just nature doing what it does best. Welcome back to Rootly Gardening. I am so glad you're here. Today, we are diving into something that will completely change the way you garden. We are talking about soil health. And specifically, we are covering 5 amazing plants that act like doctors for your dirt. These are called soil saviors. Think of them as your garden's best friends. They fix problems you cannot even see. They add nutrients back into the ground, they improve drainage, they even fight off bad bacteria and pests. We will talk about what each plant does. We will cover how to grow them, we will discuss when to plant them, and how they work their magic underground. And here is the best part. At the very end of this video, I am going to share one ultimate secret technique that multiplies the power of these plants by 3. It is a simple trick that almost no one talks about, but it makes all the difference. So stick with me until the end. You do not want to miss it. Let us get started. Before we jump into the 5 plants, we need to understand what is actually happening in your garden. Most gardeners focus on what they can see, the flowers, the vegetables, the leaves, but the real action happens below the surface. Your soil is a living ecosystem. It is full of tiny organisms, bacteria, fungi, worms. All of these creatures work together to feed your plants. When this system is healthy, your garden thrives. When it breaks down, everything suffers. So, what goes wrong? Well, there are a few common culprits. First, we have nutrient depletion. Every time you grow a plant, it pulls nutrients from the soil. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, these are the big 3. But there are also dozens of trace minerals your plants need. When you harvest a tomato or cut back a flower, those nutrients leave your garden forever. Unless you replace them, your soil becomes empty. It becomes like a bank account that only makes withdrawals. Then we have compaction. This happens when soil gets packed down tight, maybe from foot traffic, maybe from heavy rain, maybe just from time. When soil compacts, air cannot flow through it. Water cannot drain properly, and roots cannot push through to find food. Your plants end up suffocating, even though they look fine on top. Next comes the issue of soil structure. Healthy soil has a crumbly texture. It holds together but also breaks apart easily. This structure comes from organic matter. Dead leaves, decomposed roots, all the natural materials that break down over time. But if you keep removing plant material and never adding it back, your soil loses the structure. It becomes either dusty and loose or thick and clay-like. Neither one is good for growing. And finally, we have the problem of chemical imbalance. Your soil has a pH level. This measures how acidic or alkaline it is. Most plants like soil that is slightly acidic to neutral. But over time, things can shift. Rainwater tends to make soil more acidic. Some fertilizers push it one way or another. When the pH gets too far off balance, plants cannot absorb nutrients, even if those nutrients are present. It is like having food on a plate, but not being able to pick up your fork. Now, here is what makes all of this tricky. You cannot fix these problems with a single bag of fertilizer. Chemical fertilizers give your plants a quick boost. They're like candy for your garden, but they do not address the root cause. They do not rebuild the soil ecosystem. They do not improve structure. They do not balance pH naturally. And worse, they can actually harm the beneficial organisms living in your dirt. Over time, your soil becomes dependent on those chemicals. It loses its ability to feed plants on its own. This is where our 5 soil saviors come in. These plants work differently. They don't just feed your existing plants, they actually heal the soil itself. They rebuild that underground ecosystem. They fix structural problems. They balance nutrients naturally. And they do it all while growing beautifully in your garden. Some of them you can eat. Some of them are gorgeous to look at. And all of them are working hard beneath the surface to transform your dirt into rich, living soil. Think of these plants as construction workers and doctors rolled into one. They dig deep with their roots. They pull up nutrients from layers most plants cannot reach. They host beneficial bacteria on their root systems. They drop leaves that decompose into perfect organic matter. And when you cut them back or till them under, they leave behind a gift. Your soil becomes darker, richer, more alive. Your next crop of vegetables or flowers will grow stronger and healthier than before. And the best part, this improvement keeps building year after year.
Let me introduce you to the first soil savior, white clover. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Clover? Is that not just a weed? Well, here is the thing. White clover is one of the most powerful soil healers on the planet and has been seriously underestimated for way too long. White clover is a low-growing plant with small white flowers. You have probably seen it in lawns. It spreads across the ground in a thick mat. The leaves come in sets of 3, those classic clover leaves we all know. It blooms from spring through fall, and bees absolutely love it. But what makes white clover special is not what you see above ground. It is what happens below. White clover is a nitrogen fixer. Let me explain what that means. The air we breathe is about 78% nitrogen. Plants need nitrogen to grow. It helps them make proteins. It keeps their leaves green and healthy. But here's the catch. Plants cannot use nitrogen directly from the air. They need it in a different form. They need it converted into compounds they can absorb through their roots. This is where white clover becomes magical. White clover forms a partnership with special bacteria. These bacteria live in little nodules on the clover's roots. They look like tiny bumps. These bacteria can take nitrogen from the air and the soil and convert it into a form plants can use. This process is called nitrogen fixation. The clover provides sugar to the bacteria provide nitrogen to the clover. Everyone wins. But it gets even better. The clover does not hoard all that nitrogen. As the plant grows and drops leaves, that nitrogen becomes available to everything around it. When the clover dies back, or when you cut it, even more nitrogen enters the soil. You are essentially making free fertilizer. So how do you use white clover in your garden? There are several approaches. The easiest way is to plant it as a living mulch. This means you grow it between your other plants. It covers the soil surface. It prevents weeds from taking hold. It keeps the ground cool and moist, and all the while, it is pumping nitrogen into your soil. You can plant white clover between vegetable rows, around fruit trees, under berry bushes, anywhere you have bare soil. Another method is to use white clover as a cover crop. This means you plant it in an area where you are not growing anything else right now. Maybe you have a bed that is resting for the season, maybe you just harvested and you're not ready to plant yet. Sow white clover thickly across that space. Let it grow for a few months. Then cut it down before it goes to seed. You can leave the cut material on the surface as mulch, or you can lightly work it into the top few inches of soil. Either way, you are adding organic matter and nitrogen all at once. White clover is also fantastic for lawns. If you replace even part of your grass with clover, you will need less fertilizer. The clover feeds the grass naturally. It stays green during dry spells when grass turns brown. It requires almost no mowing if you like it short, and it creates a soft, lush carpet that feels great under bare feet. Planting white clover is simple. You can start from seed. Scatter the seeds over prepared soil in early spring or early fall. Those are the best times. The seeds are tiny, so you don't need to bury them deep. Just press them into the soil surface. Keep the area moist until the seeds sprout. That usually takes about a week. Once established, white clover needs very little care. It tolerates some shade.
It handles foot traffic better than most plants. And it keeps growing year after year because it's a perennial. That means it comes back without replanting. Now, let me give you some practical tips. White clover grows best in soil that's not already super rich. If your soil is very fertile, the clover might get too tall and floppy. But in average or poor soil, it thrives. It prefers full sun, but tolerates partial shade. It likes moisture, but can handle some drought once it's established. If you're planting it as a living mulch between vegetables, give your vegetables a head start. Let them get a few weeks of growth before you sow the clover. This prevents the clover from competing too much early on. One question people often ask is whether white clover will take over everything. The answer is no, not really. White clover is not aggressive like some weeds. It spreads steadily, but not violently. You can easily pull it back if it goes where you don't want it. And because it stays low to the ground, it doesn't shade out taller plants. It plays nicely with most garden neighbors. The benefits of white clover go beyond nitrogen. Its dense growth prevents soil erosion. When rain hits bare dirt, it washes away topsoil. But when rain hits clover, the leaves break the impact. The water soaks in gently, the soil stays in place. White clover roots also improve soil structure. They create channels as they grow. These channels let air and water move through the soil more easily. When the roots die and decompose, they leave behind organic matter. This feeds worms and other beneficial creatures. And here is something wonderful. White clover attracts pollinators. Those little white flowers are like magnets for bees. More bees mean better pollination for your vegetables and fruits. You get bigger yields, you get more food. All because you planted a humble clover. If you have never grown white clover before, I encourage you to start small. Try it in one garden bed. Plant it around your tomatoes or peppers. Watch what happens over the season. You'll notice the soil staying moist longer, you'll see fewer weeds popping up, and next year, when you plant in that same spot, you'll notice your plants looking greener and stronger. That's the white clover working its magic from below. Now let me tell you about the second soil savior. This one is a powerhouse. It is the daikon radish. Some people call it tillage radish or biodriller. And once you see what it does, you will understand why it has those names. Daikon radish is not like the little red radishes you slice into salads. This is a giant white radish that can grow as thick as your arm and as long as your leg. It comes from Asia, where it has been grown for thousands of years. But in recent decades, farmers and gardeners discovered something incredible. Daikon radish is one of the best tools for breaking up compacted soil. And it does this naturally, without any machines or hard work on your part. Let me explain how it works. When you plant a daikon radish seed, it sends down a strong taproot. This root drives straight down into the earth. It can penetrate 12 to 18 inches deep. Some varieties go even deeper. As it grows, it pushes aside compacted soil. It breaks through hard layers that other plants cannot reach. It creates a channel, a pathway, and this pathway stays behind even after the radish is gone. Think about what this means for your garden. If you have heavy clay soil that drains poorly, daikon radish can fix it. If you have a hard pan layer where a plow or rototiller created a dense barrier, daikon radish can punch through it. If tree roots or foot traffic have packed your soil tight, daikon radish can loosen it up. All you have to do is plant the seeds and let them grow. But the benefits do not stop at soil structure. Daikon radish also scavenges nutrients. Remember how I talked about nutrients leaching down below where most plants can reach? Daikon radish roots go deep enough to grab those nutrients. They pull up nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals from the subsoil. They store these nutrients in their leaves and roots. Then, when the plant dies back, all those nutrients return to the topsoil where your garden plants can use them. It's like having a nutrient elevator in your garden. Another amazing thing about daikon radish is how it handles cold. This plant is typically grown as a fall cover crop. You plant it in late summer or early autumn, it grows rapidly through the cool weather, then when a hard freeze comes, the plant dies. And here's the brilliant part. The roots stay in the ground over winter, but they break down quickly. By spring, those thick roots have turned into channels full of decomposing organic matter. You end up with soil that is loose, fluffy, and rich. You can plant directly into it without tilling. The daikon radish has done all the work for you. Let me walk you through how to use daikon radish in your garden. The best time to plant is about 60 to 90 days before your first hard frost. Check your local frost dates, count backwards. That gives you your planting window. In most areas, this means planting in late July, August, or early September. You want to give the radish enough time to grow big before winter shuts it down. Prepare your planting area by clearing away any debris. You do not need to till or dig unless the soil is extremely hard. In fact, one of the beauties of daikon radish is that it does the digging for you. Scatter the seeds across the area or plant them in rows. Space them about 4 to 6 inches apart. If you are planting a large area, you can broadcast the seeds more thickly. Cover them with about ½ an inch of soil. Water them in well. Daikon radish germinates quickly. You will see sprouts within 3 to 7 days if the soil is worn enough. The plants grow fast. Within a few weeks, you will have leafy greens popping up. Within 6 to 8 weeks, those roots will be driving deep into the earth. You do not need to fertilize. You do not need to baby them. Just make sure they get water if the weather is very dry. Otherwise, let them do their thing. As the radish grows, you will notice the top of the root pushing up out of the soil. This is normal. The root is so big that it cannot fit entirely underground. The exposed part turns light green. The underground part stays white. If you're curious, you can gently dig around one plant to see how deep the root has gone, but be careful not to disturb the others. Now here's an important tip. Do not let daikon radish go to seed unless you want it everywhere next year. These plants produce lots of seeds, and those seeds can sprout the following season. If you're using daikon radish as a cover crop, you want to let it die naturally from frost. If you live in a mild climate where hard freezes do not happen, you need to cut the plants down before they flower. You can chop them at ground level and leave the roots in place. Or you can pull the whole plant and lay it on the soil surface as mulch. Either way, you're adding organic matter. What happens to those big roots over winter? They freeze and thaw repeatedly. This breaks down their cell structure. They turn soft. By spring, they have mostly rotted away. What remains are those beautiful channels I mentioned. These channels improve drainage immediately. If you had water pooling on your soil surface, it will now soak in. If you had trouble with roots growing in compacted soil, they will now spread easily. The structure improvement lasts for months. Some benefits carry over into the next season too. You can also harvest daikon radish to eat. The roots are crisp and mildly spicy. They taste wonderful in stir fries, pickles, or sliced fresh into salads. The greens are edible too, but here's the trade-off. If you harvest the radish, you lose the soil building benefits. So most gardeners who are focused on soil health let the radish stay in the ground. They sacrifice the eating part for the soil improvement part. It's your choice. Daikon radish works in almost any soil type. It performs especially well in heavy clay. The roots break up those tight clay particles better than almost anything else, but it also works in sandy soil. The organic matter from the decomposing roots helps sandy soil hold moisture and nutrients better. The only place daikon radish struggles is in soil that is extremely rocky. The roots need to be able to push downward. If there are too many large rocks, the roots hit barriers and cannot develop properly. One of my favorite ways to use daikon radish is in rotation with heavy feeders. Let me explain what I mean. Some vegetables demand a lot from the soil. Tomatoes, corn, squash. These plants pull out tons of nutrients. After you harvest them in fall, your soil is tired. This is the perfect time to plant daikon radish. Let it grow through fall. Let it die back in winter. Then in spring, plant something lighter. Lettuce, greens, herbs. These plants benefit from the improved structure and the nutrients the radish left behind. The next year, you can grow heavy feeders again. This rotation keeps your soil balanced. Daikon radish also plays well with other cover crops. You can mix it with clover. The clover adds nitrogen while the radish breaks up compaction. You can mix it with annual ryegrass. The ryegrass holds the soil in place while the radish loosens it up. These combinations give you multiple benefits at once. Just make sure to adjust your seeding rates so the plants don't crowd each other out. If you have a large garden or a small farm, daikon radish becomes even more valuable. It can replace costly tillage equipment. Instead of running a tractor or rototiller, you plant radish. The radish does the work while you focus on other tasks. This saves fuel, it saves time, it saves wear and tear on your body and your machines, and it does a better job because the roots create deep channels that machines cannot replicate. Some people worry that daikon radish will rob the soil of nutrients while it grows. This is not really a concern. Yes, the plant uses some nutrients as it grows, but it's also pulling up nutrients from deep layers. And all of that gets returned when the plant decomposes. The net effect is positive. You end up with more available nutrients than you started with. Another concern is whether the radish will attract pests. Daikon radish can host some of the same pests as other brassicas: flea beetles, cabbage worms, aphids. But here's the thing. By the time these pests show up, your main garden is usually winding down. The radish acts as a trap crop. It draws pests away from your vegetables. Then when frost kills the radish, it kills the pests too. So in a way, daikon radish is protecting your garden while it builds your soil. I really can't overstate how transformative daikon radish can be. If you have struggled with poor drainage, try daikon radish. If your soil is rock hard and difficult to dig, try daikon radish. If you want to add organic matter without buying compost, try daikon radish. This plant is affordable, it's easy to grow, and the results speak for themselves. One season of daikon radish can improve your soil more than years of adding amendments. Give it a try this fall. Your spring garden will thank you.
Let me introduce you to the third soil savior. This one brings beauty and function together in the most wonderful way. It is crimson clover. If white clover is the humble workhorse, crimson clover is the showstopper. Crimson clover grows taller than white clover. It reaches about 12 to 18 inches high. The leaves are similar to white clover, but slightly larger and softer. And the flowers. Oh, the flowers are spectacular. They are deep red, almost burgundy. They grow in cone-shaped clusters at the top of each stem. When a field of crimson clover blooms, it looks like a sea of fire. It is absolutely stunning. Many gardeners plant it just for the visual impact, but the soil benefits are equally impressive. Like white clover, crimson clover is a nitrogen fixer. It forms the same partnership with bacteria. It pulls nitrogen from the air and converts it into a form plants can use. But crimson clover grows faster and bigger than white clover. This means it produces more biomass, more leaves, more stems, more roots. And all of that biomass becomes organic matter when the plant is cut down or dies back. So you get a double benefit: nitrogen fixation plus a thick blanket of organic material. Crimson clover is typically grown as an annual cover crop. You plant it in fall in warm climates or early spring in cold climates. It grows through the cool season, it blooms in late spring, then it dies back when summer heat arrives. This life cycle makes it perfect for fitting into your garden rotation. You can plant it after you harvest summer vegetables, let it grow through fall and winter, then cut it down in spring before you plant your warm season crops. Or you can plant it in early spring, let it grow and bloom, then cut it down before summer planting. The nitrogen contribution from crimson clover is significant. A thick stand of crimson clover can add as much nitrogen to your soil as a heavy application of synthetic fertilizer. Some studies show it can add up to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre. For a home garden, that translates to plenty of nitrogen for even heavy feeders like tomatoes and corn. And remember, this nitrogen releases slowly as the plant material decomposes. It does not wash away like chemical fertilizers. Your plants get a steady supply over weeks and months. But crimson clover does more than fix nitrogen.
Its roots improve soil structure just like white clover. They create channels for air and water. They host beneficial fungi and bacteria. When the roots die and break down, they leave behind organic matter deep in the soil profile. This feeds earthworms. Earthworms create more channels. They mix nutrients through the soil layers. The whole ecosystem becomes more active and healthy. Crimson clover also suppresses weeds incredibly well. Once it gets established, it forms a dense canopy. This canopy shades out most weed seeds. They cannot get enough light to germinate. And if a few weeds do sprout, they struggle to compete with the vigorous clover. By the time you cut down the crimson clover, the weed seed bank in your soil has been reduced. Your next crop faces fewer weed problems. This saves you hours of work pulling weeds later.
Now let me walk you through how to grow crimson clover. The timing depends on your climate. If you live where winters are mild, you can plant in fall. Late September through October works well. The clover will grow slowly through winter. It will put on most of its growth in early spring. Then it will bloom in April or May. If you live where winters are harsh, plant in early spring as soon as you can work the soil. The clover will grow rapidly as temperatures warm. It will bloom in late spring or early summer. To plant crimson clover, prepare your bed by removing large debris and breaking up any big clods of soil. You do not need perfect soil. Crimson clover is forgiving. Broadcast the seeds evenly across the area. You want about 20 to 30 seeds per square foot. That sounds like a lot, but the seeds are small. 1 ounce of seed covers about 100 square feet. After broadcasting, lightly rake the seeds into the soil surface. They need good contact with the soil to germinate. Then water the area gently. Keep it moist until you see sprouts. That usually takes 7 to 10 days. Crimson clover grows best in full sun. It tolerates light shade but will not be as vigorous. It prefers well-drained soil, but adapts to various soil types. It handles clay better than sandy soil. If your soil is very sandy, consider adding some compost before planting. This gives the clover a better start. Once established, crimson clover needs little care. Water during dry spells if you want maximum growth. Otherwise, let nature do the work. As the clover grows, you will notice bees visiting constantly. Crimson clover is a superb pollinator plant. Honeybees love it. Native bees love it. Butterflies visit it too. If you have fruit trees or vegetable plants that need pollination, crimson clover nearby increases your chances of good fruit set. The bloom period lasts several weeks. During that time, your garden buzzes with life. It is a joy to watch. When it is time to cut down the crimson clover, you have options. Some gardeners cut it right before it blooms. This is when the plant has maximum nutrients stored in its tissues. Cutting at this stage gives you the most nitrogen contribution. Other gardeners wait until after bloom. This gives pollinators more time to benefit. The nitrogen contribution is still excellent even after flowering. Choose what fits your goals. To cut crimson clover, you can use a scythe, a string trimmer, or even a lawnmower if the area is flat. Cut the plants at ground level, let them lie where they fall. This creates a thick mulch layer. Over the next few weeks, the plant material will start to break down. You can plant directly into this mulch. Push it aside to make a small hole for transplants or seeds. Or you can lightly work the cut clover into the top few inches of soil. This speeds up decomposition. Either method works well. If you incorporate the clover into the soil, wait about 2 to 3 weeks before planting. This gives the material time to start breaking down. Fresh plant material can temporarily tie up nitrogen as it decomposes. Waiting a bit avoids this issue. If you leave it on the surface as mulch, you can plant right away. Just make sure your transplants or seeds have good soil contact. One thing to watch for is reseeding. Crimson clover drops seeds if you let it bloom fully. Some of those seeds will sprout the next season. This can be a benefit or a problem depending on your plants. If you want clover in the same spot again, great, let it reseed. If you want to plant something else, cut the clover before seeds fully mature. You will know seeds are mature when the flower heads turn brown and dry. Crimson clover also works beautifully in orchards.
Plant it between fruit trees. It fixes nitrogen that the trees can use. It attracts pollinators when the trees bloom. It suppresses weeds around the base of the trees, and it creates a gorgeous understory. Walking through an orchard with crimson clover in bloom feels like walking through a dream. The red flowers against green grass and flowering trees is a sight you will never forget. You can also mix crimson clover with other cover crops. Try combining it with oats or winter rye. The grasses provide more biomass. The clover provides nitrogen. Together, they create a balanced soil amendment. Or mix crimson clover with vetch. Both are legumes, so you get even more nitrogen fixation. These combinations let you customize the benefits to match your soil needs. Some people ask whether crimson clover will grow back year after year like white clover. The answer is no. Crimson clover is an annual. It completes its life cycle in one season. This is actually an advantage for gardens. You get intense growth and nitrogen fixation in a short time. Then the plant dies and you move on to your next crop. There is no need to manage perennial growth. But if you love having crimson clover, you can replant it each year. The seeds are inexpensive and the benefits are worth the small effort. If you have children or grandchildren, crimson clover makes gardening extra special. Kids love the bright red flowers. They love watching bees work. You can teach them about nitrogen fixation and soil health while enjoying the beauty together. Crimson clover turns soil building into something magical rather than just another chore. I hope you can see why crimson clover holds such a special place in my heart. It combines practicality with beauty. It feeds your soil while feeding your soul. If you want to try one cover crop this year, make it crimson clover. Plant it in a visible spot where you can enjoy the blooms. Watch the bees dance among the flowers. Then, cut it down and watch your next crop thrive. You will understand why this plant is truly a soil savior.
Now we come to the fourth soil savior. This one is a bit different from the others. It is comfrey. And if you have never heard of it, you are in for a treat. Comfrey is often called the ultimate permaculture plant. It is a perennial herb that works harder than almost anything else you can grow. Comfrey has large, rough leaves that feel slightly fuzzy. The leaves can grow 2 feet long in good conditions. The plant forms a clump that spreads slowly over time. In late spring and early summer, it sends up beautiful bell-shaped flowers. These flowers can be purple, pink, white, or blue depending on the variety. Bees adore them. But the real magic of comfrey happens underground and in those big leaves. Let me tell you about the roots first. Comfrey has a taproot that can reach down 10 feet or more. Yes, you read that right, 10 feet. This root goes deeper than almost any garden plant. And as it grows downward, it mines the subsoil for minerals and nutrients. It pulls up potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and many trace elements, things that have leached down over years, things that are sitting far below where your vegetables can reach. Comfrey brings all of this back up to the surface and stores it in those large leaves. This makes comfrey an incredible nutrient accumulator. When you cut the leaves and use them in your garden, you are essentially applying a complete fertilizer. But unlike chemical fertilizers, comfrey provides nutrients in a form that releases slowly. The leaves break down gradually. Your plants get a steady feed over time. Nothing is wasted, nothing washes away. Comfrey is especially rich in potassium. Potassium helps plants develop strong stems. It improves fruit quality. It boosts disease resistance. Most gardeners think of bananas when they think of potassium, but comfrey leaves contain more potassium pound for pound than almost any other plant material. This makes comfrey perfect for feeding fruiting plants. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, fruit trees, they all benefit enormously from comfrey. So how do you use comfrey in your garden? There are several methods. The simplest is chop and drop. You cut the leaves from your comfrey plant and lay them directly on the soil around your other plants. The leaves act as mulch. They suppress weeds, they hold in moisture, and as they decompose, they release all those nutrients right where you want them.
You can do this 3 or 4 times per growing season. Comfrey grows back quickly after cutting. Each time you harvest, you get another batch of free fertilizer. Another method is making comfrey tea. This is a liquid fertilizer that is incredibly potent. To make it, you stuff fresh comfrey leaves into a bucket or barrel. Fill the container about halfway with leaves, then add water until the leaves are covered. Put a lid on it, let it sit for 3 to 4 weeks. I will warn you, it smells terrible. Really terrible. But the results are worth it. After a few weeks, you have a dark, concentrated liquid. Dilute this liquid at a ratio of 1 part comfrey tea to 10 parts water. Use it to water your plants. They will respond with vigorous growth and deep green leaves. You can also add comfrey leaves to your compost pile. They are considered a compost activator. This means they help the pile heat up and decompose faster. Comfrey has a good balance of carbon and nitrogen. It also adds those deep-mined minerals to your finished compost. Layer comfrey leaves with your kitchen scraps, grass clippings, and other materials. The compost will be richer and more nutritious as a result. Some gardeners dig comfrey leaves directly into the soil. This is called trenching. You dig a trench where you plant a plant, line the bottom with fresh comfrey leaves, cover them with a few inches of soil, then plant your seedlings or seeds on top. As the comfrey breaks down below, it feeds the roots of your growing plants. This method works especially well for tomatoes and potatoes. Both crops love the potassium boost. Now, let me talk about growing comfrey. This plant is very easy once it gets established, but there is one critical thing you need to know. Comfrey is permanent. Once you plant it, it is almost impossible to remove. The roots go so deep that even a tiny piece left in the ground will regrow. So choose your planting location carefully. Pick a spot where you're happy to have comfrey forever. Along a fence line, at the edge of the garden, under fruit trees, somewhere it can stay put. You can start comfrey from root cuttings or from plants. Root cuttings are the most common method. You buy small pieces of comfrey root from a supplier, plant them about 4 inches deep, space them about 3 feet apart. Water them in. Within a few weeks, you'll see shoots emerging. The plants grow quickly. By the end of the first season, you'll have decent-sized clumps. By the second year, you can start harvesting regularly. Comfrey prefers full sun, but tolerates partial shade. It likes moist soil, but handles dry periods once established. It grows in almost any soil type. Clay, sand, loam. It does not care. The only thing it really dislikes is being waterlogged for long periods. If you have a wet, boggy area, choose a different spot. There are several varieties of comfrey. The most popular for gardens is called Bocking 14. This variety is sterile. It does not produce viable seeds. This is important because regular comfrey can seed itself around and become weedy. Bocking 14 only spreads by roots, which are easy to manage. It also tends to have higher nutrient levels than other varieties. If you're buying comfrey, ask for Bocking 14. Once your comfrey is established, maintenance is minimal. Cut the leaves when they're about 2 feet tall. Leave about 2 inches of stem above the ground. The plant will regrow from the crown. You can harvest like this 3 to 5 times per season, depending on your climate. Do not worry about cutting too much. Comfrey is nearly indestructible. The more you cut it, the more it seems to produce. In colder climates, comfrey dies back to the ground in winter. The roots survive even harsh freezes. Come spring, new growth emerges, and the cycle begins again. In mild climates, comfrey stays semi-evergreen. It slows down but does not fully die back. Either way, it requires no special winter care. One of the best things about comfrey is its longevity. A single planting can produce for 20 years or more. Imagine that! You plant comfrey once, then for 2 decades, you have a free source of high-quality fertilizer. No more buying bags of nutrients. No more worrying about whether your plants are getting what they need. Just cut comfrey and spread it around. It's sustainable, it's economical, and it works beautifully. Comfrey also provides habitat for beneficial insects. The flowers attract not just bees, but also hoverflies and predatory wasps. These insects help control garden pests. So Comfrey is contributing to pest management while it builds your soil. Multiple benefits from one plant. Some people worry about Comfrey being toxic. It is true that Comfrey contains compounds called purolizidine alkaloids. These can be harmful if consumed in large quantities over time. But we're not talking about eating Comfrey. We're using it as a soil amendment. The leaves are perfectly safe to handle and use in the garden. Just don't make Comfrey smoothies or herbal teas for drinking. Keep it external. If you have livestock, Comfrey is also valuable as animal fodder. Chickens love it, rabbits love it, goats will eat it. The leaves are high in protein and minerals. Feeding Comfrey to animals means those nutrients come back in manure. Then you use that manure in your garden. It's a beautiful closed-loop system. I want to share a personal story about Comfrey. When I first planted it, I was skeptical. It seemed too good to be true, but I gave it a try along my back fence. That first year, I harvested a few times and mulched my tomatoes with the leaves. The difference was remarkable. My tomatoes produced more fruit. The plant stayed healthier longer into the season. The soil around them looked darker and richer. I was sold. Now I have Comfrey in several spots. I use it on everything, and every year my garden improves. Comfrey has become one of my most trusted tools. If you decide to plant Comfrey, start with just a few plants. See how you like working with it. Learn the rhythms of cutting and regrowing. Once you experience the benefits, you can always expand. But remember that permanent placement. Don't plant Comfrey in the middle of an annual bed. Put it somewhere stable, somewhere it can become a long-term fixture of your garden ecosystem. Treat it with respect, and it will reward you year after year after year.
Now let me introduce you to the fifth and final soil savior. This one is special for entirely different reasons. It is buckwheat. And no, we are not talking about the grain you buy at the store, though it is the same plant. We are talking about buckwheat as a cover crop, as a soil builder, as a fast-acting garden helper. Buckwheat is an annual plant that grows incredibly quickly. I mean, incredibly. You can plant buckwheat seeds today and have flowering plants in just 6 weeks, sometimes even faster in warm weather. This makes buckwheat perfect for filling gaps in your garden schedule. You have a few weeks between crops? Plant buckwheat. You have a bed that needs attention, but you're not ready to plant your main crop yet? Plant buckwheat. It fits into tight windows like nothing else. The plant itself is quite pretty. It grows about 2 to 3 feet tall, the stems are slightly red, the leaves are heart-shaped and soft green, and the flowers are small, white to pink, and delicate. They appear in clusters at the top of the plant. Bees find buckwheat flowers irresistible. In fact, buckwheat honey is a special product prized by honey lovers. It has a dark color and a strong, distinctive flavor. So when you plant buckwheat, you are feeding both your soil and your local pollinators. Now let me tell you what buckwheat does for your soil. First, it is a master at suppressing weeds. Buckwheat grows so fast and so thick that weeds simply cannot compete. Within a few weeks, you have a solid canopy shading the ground. Any weed seeds trying to germinate get blocked out. This makes buckwheat excellent for cleaning up weedy areas. Plant it thick, let it grow. Cut it down before it sets seed, then plant again if you still have time. 2 or 3 cycles of buckwheat can dramatically reduce your weed problems. Second, buckwheat has an amazing ability to make phosphorus available. Let me explain why this matters. Phosphorus is one of the 3 main nutrients plants need. It helps with root development, it promotes flowering and fruiting, but phosphorus often gets locked up in soil. It binds with other minerals and becomes unavailable to plants. This is especially common in alkaline soils. Buckwheat roots release organic acids that dissolve these bound phosphorus compounds.
The buckwheat uses some of this phosphorus, but when the plant dies and decomposes, that phosphorus becomes available to your next crop. It's like buckwheat is unlocking a treasure chest of nutrients that was sitting in your soil all along. Third, buckwheat adds organic matter quickly. Because it grows so fast, it produces a lot of biomass in a short time. When you cut it down, you get a thick layer of plant material. This material is soft and breaks down rapidly. It is not woody or tough like some cover crops. Within a few weeks of cutting, buckwheat residue has mostly decomposed. This makes it perfect for quick turnaround situations. You can grow buckwheat, cut it, wait 2 weeks, and plant your vegetables. The soil will be loose, fluffy, and enriched. Fourth, buckwheat improves soil structure. The roots are fine and fibrous. They spread through the topsoil, creating a network of channels. When these roots die, they leave behind organic matter and pathways for air and water. The result is soil that is easier to work and more hospitable to plant roots. This benefit is subtle but real. After growing buckwheat, you will notice your soil feels different. It crumbles more easily. It does not clump as much. It has better tilth. That is the word gardeners use for soil that has good structure. So how do you use buckwheat? The timing is flexible because it grows so fast. You can plant buckwheat anytime from late spring through late summer as long as you have 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost. Sometimes gardeners plant it after harvesting early crops. Maybe you pulled out your peas in early July. Plant buckwheat. Maybe your spring lettuce bolted in June. Plant buckwheat. You can also plant buckwheat before putting in a fall garden. Grow it for 6 weeks in late summer, cut it down, then plant your fall greens or root vegetables. To plant buckwheat, prepare your bed by clearing debris and lightly raking the surface. You don't need to dig or till. Broadcast the seeds evenly. Buckwheat seeds are larger than clover seeds, but still small. You want about 2 to 3 seeds per square inch for good coverage. That comes out to roughly 1 ounce of seed per 50 square feet. After broadcasting, lightly rake the seeds into the soil or just press them down with your hand or a board. Water gently. Within 3 to 5 days, you will see sprouts. The growth from there is rapid and satisfying to watch. Buckwheat needs full sun to perform its best. It tolerates poor soil, which is part of its charm. You can plant it in problem areas where other things struggle. It does fine in sandy soil. It handles clay reasonably well. It even grows in soil that is slightly acidic or alkaline. The only thing buckwheat does not tolerate is frost. Even a light freeze will kill it, so this is why you plant it in the warm season only. As buckwheat grows, you'll notice how it shades out everything beneath it. The canopy becomes so dense that the soil stays cool and moist even in summer heat. This is great for soil biology. The microbes and fungi in your soil thrive in these conditions. When you eventually cut down the buckwheat, you're leaving behind a soil ecosystem that is vibrant and healthy. Buckwheat begins flowering about 4 to 5 weeks after planting. The flowers continue for several weeks. This is prime time for pollinators. If you have vegetable plants nearby that need pollination, the buckwheat will help ensure good insect activity. I always smile when I see bees working my buckwheat patch. I know they are also visiting my cucumbers and squash. The best time to cut buckwheat is when it's in full bloom, but before seeds fully develop. This is when the plant has maximum nutrient content. The stems are still tender, the breakdown will be quick. If you wait too long and let seeds mature, buckwheat will reseed itself. This can be a problem because buckwheat can become weedy if it escapes, so timing matters. Watch your patch. When you see lots of flowers and maybe a few seeds forming, that's your signal to cut. Cutting buckwheat is easy. You can use a scythe, a string trimmer, or garden shears, depending on the size of your patch. Cut the plants at ground level. Let them fall where they are. The soft foliage wilts quickly. Within a day or two, it has collapsed into a mulch layer. Leave this layer in place. It will decompose rapidly. Or if you prefer, you can rake up the cut buckwheat and add it to your compost pile. It makes excellent compost material because it breaks down so fast. After cutting buckwheat, you have options. You can wait 2 to 3 weeks and plant your next crop. The buckwheat residue will have started decomposing, the soil will be ready. Or you can plant another round of buckwheat if the season allows. Some gardeners do 2 or even 3 buckwheat cycles in one summer. Each cycle adds more organic matter, each cycle suppresses more weeds. The cumulative effect is powerful. Another great use for buckwheat is solarization prep. If you have a really weedy or problem area, you can use buckwheat to help clean it up before solarizing. Plant buckwheat thick, let it grow and shade out weeds, cut it down, then cover the area with clear plastic to solarize. The combination of buckwheat suppression and solar heat kills weed seeds and soil pathogens. After a few weeks, you have clean, healthy soil ready for planting. Buckwheat also works well in combination with other cover crops. You can mix it with clover. The buckwheat provides quick cover and organic matter. The clover fixes nitrogen and lasts longer. Together, they give you short-term and long-term benefits. You can also follow buckwheat with a fall cover crop like crimson clover or rye. Buckwheat conditions the soil in summer. The fall crop continues the improvement through winter. This succession keeps your soil covered and actively building. One question people often ask is whether buckwheat adds nitrogen like clover does. The answer is no. Buckwheat is not a legume. It does not fix nitrogen, but it does add organic matter, which contains some nitrogen. And, as I mentioned, it makes phosphorus available. So while it's not a nitrogen powerhouse, it still contributes to overall soil fertility. For best results, combine buckwheat with nitrogen-fixing plants. Use them in rotation or as a mix. This way you get a complete package of soil benefits. Buckwheat is also one of the most affordable cover crops. The seeds are inexpensive, you can often find them in bulk at farm supply stores. A small investment covers a large area. And because buckwheat grows so fast, you see results quickly. There is something deeply satisfying about planting seeds on Monday and seeing a green carpet by the following Monday. Buckwheat delivers instant gratification in a world where gardening often requires patience. If you have children who are learning to garden, buckwheat is a perfect teaching plant. It grows fast enough to hold their attention, the flowers are pretty and attract interesting insects, and the concept of growing plants to feed the soil rather than to eat is mind-expanding. It helps kids understand that gardening isn't just about the harvest. It's about building something that lasts. It's about working with nature. I encourage you to try buckwheat this season. Pick a small area, maybe a corner that needs attention. Plant a patch of buckwheat. Watch it grow. Watch the bees come. Cut it down. Feel the soil afterward. I think you'll be amazed at how much improvement happens in such a short time. Buckwheat may be the fastest worker among our 5 soil saviors, but it punches well above its weight. It deserves a place in every garden.
We have covered a lot of ground together. We talked about white clover and how it fixes nitrogen while creating a living mulch. We explored daikon radish and its incredible ability to break up compacted soil and mine deep nutrients. We looked at crimson clover with its stunning red blooms and powerful nitrogen contribution. We discovered comfrey and how it mines minerals from deep underground and provides them in those massive leaves. And we just finished learning about buckwheat and its speed at suppressing weeds and making phosphorus available. These 5 plants are true soil saviors. Each one brings something unique to your garden. Each one addresses specific soil problems. And the beauty is that you can use them together. You can create a rotation that includes all 5. You can mix them in combinations that match your specific needs. The possibilities are endless. But before we go any further, I want to pause for just a moment. If you are finding this information helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button. It helps other gardeners discover this video. And if you have not subscribed to Rootly Gardening yet, please do. We share practical gardening advice just like this every week. We are building a community of gardeners who care about soil health and sustainable practices. I would love for you to be part of it. Now, let us keep going. We still have more to cover. I want to talk about how to combine these plants for maximum benefit. I want to share some troubleshooting tips.
And remember, I promised you that ultimate secret technique at the end, the one that multiplies the power of these soil saviors by 3. We are getting closer to that, so stay with me. Let us dive into how to use these plants strategically in your garden. Now that you know what each plant does individually, let me show you how to use them together. This is where things get really exciting. When you combine these soil saviors strategically, the benefits multiply. You create a system where each plant builds on what the others have done. Your soil improves faster, your garden becomes more resilient, and you spend less time fighting problems. Let me start by talking about timing. These 5 plants have different growing seasons. White clover is perennial. It grows year-round in mild climates and returns each spring in cold climates. Crimson clover is a cool season annual. It grows in fall and winter in warm areas, or spring and early summer in cold areas. Daikon radish is a fall cover crop. It grows in late summer and fall, then dies in winter. Buckwheat is a warm season annual. It grows fast during summer months. And comfrey is perennial. It grows actively from spring through fall, then dies back in winter. Do you see how these seasons fit together like puzzle pieces? You can have something growing and working for your soil almost all the time. Let me give you an example rotation for a typical vegetable bed. Imagine you harvest your tomatoes in early fall. The bed is empty. This is your chance to start soil building. First, plant daikon radish. Sow it thickly across the bed. Let it grow through fall. The radish will break up any compaction from the tomato roots. It will mine deep nutrients. When winter frost kills it, those big roots will start decomposing. In early spring, the bed is ready. But instead of planting vegetables right away, sow buckwheat. It grows for 6 weeks. It suppresses any early weeds from the old lawn. It makes phosphorus available. It adds quick organic matter. Cut it down in late spring, wait 2 weeks, now plant your summer vegetables. Maybe peppers and eggplant this time. While they grow, you can undersow white clover between the rows. The clover will establish slowly under the vegetables. After you harvest the peppers in fall, the white clover is already there. Let it grow through winter. It will fix nitrogen and protect the soil. In spring, you can either leave the clover and plant through it, or you can cut it down and plant something new. Do you see the pattern? You are never leaving the soil bare. Something is always growing, always working, always improving. And each plant in the sequence addresses a different need. Daikon radish breaks up compaction, buckwheat handles weeds and phosphorus, white clover adds nitrogen and protects the surface. Together, they create a comprehensive soil improvement. Here is another example. Let us say you have a new garden area. Maybe it used to be lawn. The soil is compacted and low in nutrients. You want to prepare it for growing vegetables next year. Start in late summer by planting daikon radish mixed with crimson clover. The radish breaks up the compaction, the clover fixes nitrogen. Let them grow through fall. The radish will die from frost. The crimson clover will survive winter in most areas. In spring, the clover blooms beautifully. After bloom, cut it down. Now plant buckwheat for the summer. It suppresses any lingering grass and weeds from the old lawn. It adds more organic matter. Cut it down in late summer. Now your soil is ready. Plant your fall vegetables or wait until next spring and plant anything you want. That soil will be transformed. It will be loose, dark, rich, and full of life. Comfrey fits into these rotations differently because it is permanent. Remember, you plant comfrey once and it stays. So think of comfrey as your nutrient mining station. Plant it along the edges of your garden, or in corners, or between permanent beds. Then, harvest the leaves throughout the season and use them where needed. If your tomatoes need a boost, give them comfrey mulch. If your compost pile needs activating, add comfrey leaves. Comfrey supports all your other soil building efforts. It's like having a fertilizer factory right in your garden. You can also create specific mixes for specific problems. Do you have heavy clay soil that drains poorly? Focus on daikon radish in fall, followed by buckwheat in summer. The radish breaks up the clay physically, the buckwheat adds organic matter that improves structure. Do you have sandy soil that does not hold nutrients? Focus on crimson clover and white clover. They add nitrogen and organic matter. The organic matter helps sand hold moisture and nutrients better. Do you have soil that is depleted from years of growing the same crops? Use all 5 plants in rotation. Each one addresses a different aspect of depletion.
Another powerful strategy is using these plants as trap crops and living mulches. Let me explain what I mean. A trap crop is something that attracts pests away from your main plants. Buckwheat attracts beneficial insects that prey on pests. White clover hosts predatory beetles. By having these cover crops growing alongside your vegetables, you create habitat for good bugs. The good bugs control the bad bugs. You need fewer interventions. A living mulch is a low-growing plant that covers the soil surface while your main crop grows above it. White clover works perfectly for this. Plant it between rows of corn, under tomatoes, around squash. It keeps weeds down, it keeps soil moist, and it fixes nitrogen the whole time. Your vegetables benefit without any competition. Some gardeners worry that cover crops will compete with vegetables for nutrients and water. This is a valid concern if you do it wrong, but if you time things correctly, competition is minimal. The key is giving your vegetables a head start. Let them get established before you plant cover crops around them, or plant cover crops before or after your main crop, not during. Use low-growing covers like white clover that do not shade out taller plants, and make sure there is enough water for everything. In most home gardens, competition is not a real problem as long as you are thoughtful about placement and timing. Let me give you some troubleshooting tips. What if you plant daikon radish but nothing comes up? Check your timing. Daikon radish needs warm soil to germinate. If you plant too late and fall when soil is cold, germination fails. Also check moisture. The seeds need consistent moisture for the first week. If the soil dries out, they will not sprout. What if your buckwheat grows but stays short and weak? It probably needs more sun. Buckwheat must have full sun to thrive. If it is in shade, it will be spindly. Also make sure you planted enough seed. Thin planting leads to weak stands. What if your clover does not fix much nitrogen? Check the roots. Dig up a plant and look for nodules. If you do not see any, the nitrogen-fixing bacteria may not be present in your soil. You can buy inoculant. This is a powder containing the bacteria. Coat your clover seeds with inoculant before planting. The bacteria will establish and form nodules. Then nitrogen fixation will begin. What if your comfrey grows too slowly? Give it time. Comfrey is slow the first year. By year 2, it picks up speed. Also make sure it has enough water. Comfrey likes moisture. If the soil is bone dry, growth will be sluggish. What if your cover crop goes to seed and spreads everywhere? Cut it sooner next time. You want to harvest cover crops before they set mature seed. With crimson clover, cut right after bloom or even during bloom. With buckwheat, cut when flowers are open but seeds are still green. With white clover, mow it regularly if you do not want it spreading. These simple timing adjustments prevent most reseeding problems. Here is an advanced tip. You can boost the effectiveness of all these plants by adding mycorrhizal fungi to your soil. Mycorrhizae are beneficial fungi that colonize plant roots. They extend the reach of the roots, they help plants absorb phosphorus and other nutrients, they improve drought tolerance. Most soil saviors benefit from mycorrhizae. You can buy mycorrhizal inoculant and apply it when planting, or you can build it naturally by minimizing tillage and adding compost. Once mycorrhizae are established, they create a living network in your soil. This network connects plants and helps them share resources. It's like installing underground internet for your garden. Another advanced tip is to pay attention to allelopathy. This is a fancy word for how some plants affect others chemically. Some plants release compounds that inhibit other plants. Buckwheat has mild allelopathic effects. This is part of why it suppresses weeds so well, but it can also slow down some vegetables if you plant too soon after cutting buckwheat. Waiting 2 weeks allows these compounds to break down. Then everything grows normally. Most of our 5 soil saviors have minimal allelopathic effects, but it is worth knowing about so you can plan accordingly.
Let me talk about seed saving for a moment. If you grow these cover crops year after year, you might want to save your own seed. It is possible with some of them. Crimson clover and buckwheat are easy to save. Let a small patch go to full seed. Harvest the dried seed heads, thresh out the seeds, store them in a cool, dry place. Next year, you have free seed. Daikon radish can also be saved, but remember it is biennial. It needs 2 seasons to make seed. You would have to overwinter the roots and let them flower in spring. For most gardeners, it's easier to just buy fresh daikon seed each year. White clover can reseed itself if you let it. You do not need to actively save seed. And comfrey is grown from root divisions, not seed, so seed saving doesn't apply. I want to emphasize how affordable this approach to soil building is. 5 pounds of daikon radish seed costs about $20 and covers a large area. A pound of crimson clover is about $10. Buckwheat is even cheaper. White clover is inexpensive, and comfrey root cuttings are a one-time purchase. For less than the cost of a few bags of fertilizer, you can set up a soil building system that lasts for years. This is real value. This is investing in your garden's future. One more thing I want to mention is record keeping. I encourage you to keep notes on what you plant and when. Write down which cover crops you used in each bed. Note how they performed. Did the daikon radish grow huge roots? Did the buckwheat suppress weeds well? How did your vegetables do after growing in that soil? These notes become incredibly valuable over time. You will see patterns. You will learn what works best in your specific conditions, and you will be able to refine your approach year after year. Now I want to step back and talk about the bigger picture. These 5 soil saviors are not just about fixing immediate problems. They are about creating a sustainable garden system. A system that gets better over time instead of worse. A system that works with nature instead of against it. Let me explain what I mean. Traditional gardening often follows an extractive model. You plant, you harvest, you remove everything from the garden, then you buy fertilizer to replace what you took. This works in the short term, but it creates dependency. You need to keep buying inputs. You need to keep applying chemicals. And despite all that effort, the soil never truly improves. It stays stuck at the same level. Or worse, it degrades over time from compaction and loss of organic matter. The approach we are discussing here is different. It is regenerative. Every action you take builds the soil. When you plant white clover, it fixes nitrogen while you grow vegetables. When you plant daikon radish after harvest, it breaks up compaction and mines nutrients. When you harvest comfrey leaves, you are moving nutrients from deep layers to the surface. When you grow buckwheat, you are making locked up phosphorus available. Each of these actions adds something. Each one improves the soil structure. Each one feeds the soil ecosystem. Over time, this creates a positive spiral. Better soil grows healthier plants. Healthier plants produce more organic matter when they finish their cycle. More organic matter feeds more soil organisms. More soil organisms create better soil structure and nutrient cycling. Better structure holds more water and air. More water and air support more life. And round it goes. Each season, your garden becomes more productive with less input from you. This is what sustainability really means. It means creating systems that maintain themselves, systems that do not require constant outside resources, systems that work in harmony with natural processes. And the beautiful thing is that you do not need a lot of space to do this. Even a small urban garden can be managed regeneratively. Even a few raised beds. The principles scale up or down. Let me talk about soil carbon for a moment. This is something you hear about in discussions of climate change. Soil can store carbon, lots of it. When plants grow, they pull carbon dioxide from the air through photosynthesis. They use some of that carbon to build their bodies, and they also send some carbon down into the soil through their roots. This carbon feeds soil microbes. Some of it gets stored in stable forms that last for years or even decades. This is called carbon sequestration. Every one of our 5 soil saviors sequesters carbon. They pull it from the atmosphere and pump it underground. The more we grow these plants, the more carbon we store. On a global scale, regenerative agriculture has enormous potential to help address climate change. on a personal scale, it means your garden is doing good for the planet while it feeds you. That is worth celebrating. Now, let me address a common concern. Some people worry that focusing on soil health means sacrificing productivity. They think you have to choose between building soil and growing food. This is absolutely not true. In fact, the opposite is true. Healthy soil is more productive soil. Plants grown in living, nutrient-rich soil produce bigger harvests. They resist pests and diseases better. They handle stress better. They taste better, too. I'm not exaggerating. When you bite into a tomato grown in truly healthy soil, the flavor is different. It is richer, more complex. That is because the plant has access to all the minerals and nutrients it needs. I have seen this in my own garden over and over. When I first started gardening, my yields were mediocre. I got some tomatoes, some beans, nothing special. Then I started focusing on soil health. I planted cover crops, I used comfrey, I stopped tilling. Within 2 years, my yields doubled. Within 5 years, they tripled. And I was using less fertilizer, not more. The soil was doing the work. My plants were healthier and happier. And so was I, because I spent less time fighting problems. This brings me to the concept of soil biology. Healthy soil is teeming with life. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, microarthropods, earthworms, all of these creatures are working constantly. They break down organic matter, they cycle nutrients, they suppress disease organisms, they improve soil structure continuously. When you use chemical fertilizers and pesticides heavily, you harm this biology. You kill off beneficial organisms along with the pests. The soil becomes less alive, less functional, less resilient. But when you use plants to build soil, you feed this biology. You create habitat for beneficial organisms. You give them food and shelter. The result is a soil ecosystem that functions at a high level. This ecosystem does things no amount of fertilizer can do. It creates nutrients from raw materials, it fights off diseases, it improves soil structure continuously. It's like having millions of tiny workers in your garden, and they work for free.
Let me share something that might surprise you. Soil is not just dirt. Soil is one of the most complex ecosystems on Earth. A single handful of healthy soil contains more living organisms than there are people on the planet. Think about that. Billions of bacteria, miles of fungal threads, thousands of other microscopic creatures, all living, eating, reproducing, interacting. When you care for your soil, you are caring for this invisible world, and that world cares for your plants in return. This is why I am so passionate about these 5 soil saviors. They are not just plants. They are tools for nurturing soil life. White clover feeds bacteria on its roots. Daikon radish creates channels for air and water. Comfrey provides minerals that feed fungi. Crimson clover drops protein-rich leaves that feed decomposers. Buckwheat releases acids that stimulate microbial activity. Each plant contributes to the living community underground. Now, let me talk about water. Healthy soil holds water much better than degraded soil. Organic matter acts like a sponge. It absorbs rainfall and irrigation. It holds that water in the soil profile where plant roots can access it. Then it releases water slowly over time. This means you need to water less often. Your plants handle dry spells better. And when it does rain, the water soaks in instead of running off. This reduces erosion, it reduces the need for irrigation. It makes your garden more resilient to weather extremes. All 5 of our soil saviors improve water holding capacity. They add organic matter, they improve structure, they create pore spaces that hold both air and water. Over time, soil that was once dusty and dry becomes moist and crumbly. Soil that was once waterlogged and muddy becomes well-drained. The soil finds balance, and balanced soil grows better plants. Let me address another topic, nutrients. We often think of nutrients as something we add to soil. We buy fertilizer, we sprinkle it on. But in nature, nutrients cycle.
They move from soil to plants to animals and back to soil. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is removed. The system is closed. In gardens, we break this cycle when we harvest. We take vegetables to the kitchen. We eat them. The nutrients leave the garden. This is fine. This is the purpose of a garden, but we need to replace what we take. The conventional way to replace nutrients is with fertilizer, but there is another way. Grow plants that bring nutrients into the system. Clover brings nitrogen from the air. Daikon radish brings minerals from deep soil layers. Comfrey does the same. These plants are nutrient pumps. They gather nutrients and make them available. When you combine this with composting and mulching, you can close most of the nutrient cycle. You can reduce or even eliminate the need for purchase inputs. I am not saying you will never need fertilizer. Sometimes a specific crop needs a boost. Sometimes your soil has a particular deficiency. But instead of depending on fertilizer for everything, you use it strategically. You use it to fine-tune rather than to provide basic nutrition. This saves money, it reduces environmental impact, and it builds long-term soil health rather than creating dependency. Now, let me talk about pest and disease management. Healthy soil grows healthy plants, and healthy plants resist pests and diseases better. This is not just theory, this is proven science. Plants grown in nutrient-rich, biologically active soil have stronger cell walls. They produce more defensive compounds. They bounce back faster from damage. Pests prefer weak plants. Diseases take hold more easily in stressed plants. So the best pest management strategy is growing strong plants in healthy soil. Our 5 soil saviors contribute to this. They create the conditions for strong plant growth. They support beneficial insects that prey on pests. They build soil biology that suppresses disease organisms. When you walk into a garden where soil health is prioritized, you feel the difference. The plants look vibrant. They stand up straight. Their leaves are dark green. There is a sense of vitality, and problems are fewer. I also want to mention the mental health benefits of this approach. Gardening is good for your mind. It reduces stress. It provides purpose. It connects you to nature. But there is something particularly satisfying about regenerative gardening. You are not just growing food. You are healing the earth. You are building something that lasts. Every time you plant a cover crop or harvest comfrey leaves, you are participating in creation. You are making the world a little bit better. That feels good. It gives meaning to the work. And there's wonder in it too. When you dig into soil that has been built over seasons, you find earthworms. You see the dark, rich color. You smell that sweet, earthy scent. You feel the crumbly texture. You realize this is something you made, not with machines or chemicals, but with plants and time and care. That connection is profound. It changes how you see your garden. It changes how you see yourself as a gardener. Let me share one more thought. The knowledge you gain from growing these soil saviors is portable. You can take it anywhere. If you move to a new house, you can start building soil there. If you help a friend with their garden, you can share these techniques. If you volunteer at a community garden, you can introduce cover cropping. The skills and understanding you develop become part of who you are. They empower you to create abundance wherever you go. This is why I teach this approach. Not because it's trendy, not because it's complicated or impressive, but because it works. Because it is accessible to everyone. Because it builds resilience in an uncertain world. Because it creates beauty and bounty while healing the land. These 5 plants are humble. They are simple, but they are powerful. They give you the ability to transform your garden. And by extension, they help transform how we relate to the earth.
We have covered so much together today. We talked about why soil struggles. We explored 5 incredible plants that heal and build soil naturally. We discussed how to combine them for maximum benefit. We looked at the bigger picture,
of sustainability and regeneration. And now we have arrived at the moment I promised you at the beginning, the ultimate secret technique that multiplies the power of these soil saviors by 3. Are you ready? Here it is. The secret is called chop and drop layering with inoculation. Let me break down what this means and why it is so powerful. Most gardeners use cover crops one at a time. They plant clover, they cut it down, then they plant vegetables. Or they plant buckwheat, they cut it down, then they till it in. This works fine, but there is a better way. A way that stacks the benefits and accelerates soil building dramatically. Here's what you do. Instead of using one cover crop at a time, you layer multiple cover crops in succession without removing the previous ones. And you inoculate each layer with compost or compost tea to jumpstart decomposition. Let me walk you through the process step by step. Start in late summer, plant daikon radish across your bed. Let it grow through fall. When frost kills it, do not remove anything. Leave the dead tops right where they fall. Leave the roots in the ground. Now immediately plant crimson clover over the dead daikon. The clover seeds will nestle down into the residue. They will germinate and grow through winter. In spring, the daikon roots have mostly decomposed. The clover is thriving. Here's where the magic happens. Do not cut the clover yet. Instead, sprinkle a thin layer of finished compost over everything, just a 1/4 inch. This compost contains billions of decomposer organisms. These organisms immediately start working on the dead daikon material and the living clover roots. They accelerate decomposition. They build soil biology. Now let the clover bloom. After bloom, cut it down. But here's the key. Do not remove the cut clover. Let it lie as mulch. And immediately sprinkle another thin layer of compost over the cut clover. Now plant buckwheat right into this mess. Yes, right into it. Scatter buckwheat seeds over the compost and clover mulch. The seeds will find soil. They will germinate through the mulch. As the buckwheat grows, the clover underneath is decomposing. The compost organisms are working overtime. By the time buckwheat is ready to cut, the clover has mostly broken down. You have added multiple layers of organic matter without waiting for each one to fully decompose before adding the next. Cut the buckwheat. Leave it. Add another thin layer of compost. Now you can plant your vegetables, or you can add one more cover crop cycle if time allows. Each time you layer plant material and add compost, you are creating a lasagna of nutrients and organic matter. Each layer feeds the next. The compost ensures rapid decomposition. The succession of different plants provides a diversity of nutrients and root structures. The result is soil building that happens 3 times faster than using each plant separately. Why does this work so well? Several reasons. First, you are keeping the soil covered constantly. There is never bare earth exposed to sun and rain. This protects soil structure. It prevents erosion. It maintains consistent moisture. Second, you are feeding soil organisms constantly. Every time you add a new layer, you give microbes fresh food. They stay active, they multiply, they build soil biology rapidly. Third, you are adding diversity. Different cover crops have different nutrient profiles, different root structures, different beneficial organisms. By layering them, you create complexity, and complex soil ecosystems are healthier and more resilient. The compost inoculation is critical. You might think that adding just a thin layer of compost would not make much difference. But that thin layer contains billions of decomposer organisms. When you spread it over fresh plant material, those organisms colonize it immediately. They break it down much faster than it would decompose on its own. This means you do not have to wait long periods between plantings. The decomposition happens quickly, and as it happens, nutrients are released in forms your plants can use right away. Now, let me give you the exact timeline for this technique. In late August, plant daikon radish. In late October or early November, plant crimson clover over the dead or dying daikon. In early April, add compost and cut the clover. In mid-April, add more compost and plant buckwheat. In mid-June, cut buckwheat, add compost, and plant your summer vegetables. Or, if you prefer, skip the vegetables and plant one more round of buckwheat. Cut it in late July, add compost, then plant your full vegetables. In 6 months, you have layered 3 to 4 cover crops plus compost. You have added massive amounts of organic matter, and your soil has been transformed. I need to emphasize something important. Use thin layers of compost. You do not need much. A 1/4 inch is enough. A 5-gallon bucket of compost will cover about 100 square feet. If you use too much compost, you can overwhelm the system. Thin layers work better. They inoculate without smothering. If you don't have access to finished compost, you can use compost tea instead. Brew a bucket of compost tea, spray it over each layer of cut cover crop. The microorganisms in the tea will do the same job as compost. They will colonize the plant material and accelerate breakdown. Now, let me add one more element to make this even more powerful. Incorporate comfrey into the layering. Remember, comfrey is perennial. Plant it at the edge of your bed. Throughout the growing season, harvest comfrey leaves. Chop them up, sprinkle them over your cover crop layers along with the compost. Comfrey leaves are nutrient-rich. They break down quickly. They add potassium, phosphorus, and trace minerals. By adding comfrey to each layer, you are supercharging the nutrient content. Your plants will have access to everything they need. This technique also works beautifully with white clover as a living mulch. Here's how. After you cut your buckwheat in summer, add compost, plant white clover mixed with your vegetables. The vegetables grow tall, the white clover grows low underneath them. Throughout the season, the clover is fixing nitrogen and protecting the soil. When you harvest vegetables in fall, the white clover is already established. Now plant daikon radish right into it. The radish will grow up through it. When frost kills the radish, the clover remains. It continues working through winter. In spring, you can cut some of the clover back to make room for new plantings, or you can leave it and plant into it. Either way, you have continuous cover and continuous soil building.
I discovered this technique by accident several years ago. I had planted crimson clover but did not cut it down in time. It went to seed. I was frustrated. But then I noticed buckwheat volunteers coming up through the clover residue. And those buckwheat plants grew better than any I had planted deliberately. I dug into the soil underneath, and it was incredible. Dark, crumbly, full of worms. The layering had created something special. Since then, I have refined the technique. I have experimented with different combinations and timing, and I have seen it transform tired soil into vibrant, living earth in a single season. The reason this multiplies the power by 3 is simple math. If you use 1 cover crop per season, you get 1 set of benefits. If you use 3 cover crops layered with compost inoculation, you get 3 sets of benefits in the same time period. But it is actually more than 3 times, because the benefits stack and interact. The daikon radish breaks up compaction. This allows the crimson clover roots to go deeper. The crimson clover adds nitrogen. This feeds the buckwheat and makes it grow more vigorously. The buckwheat adds quick organic matter. This feeds the soil organisms that break down the clover and radish. Everything works together. The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Let me give you some practical tips for success with this technique. First, start small. Try it in 1 bed. Get comfortable with the timing and process. Then, expand to more beds. Second, do not skip the compost inoculation. That is what makes the magic happen. Third, be patient with the first cycle. It might feel messy, you might worry that nothing is happening, but trust the process. By the end, you will be amazed. Fourth, adjust timing to your climate. The dates I gave are for temperate zones. If you live in a different climate, shift the timeline to match your seasons. Fifth, keep notes. Write down what you planted and when. Record how each layer decomposed. Note how your vegetables performed afterward. These notes will help you refine your approach. One question people ask is whether this technique works in raised beds. Absolutely. In fact, it works wonderfully in raised beds. Raised beds often have excellent drainage, which means organic matter breaks down quickly. The layering technique keeps replenishing that organic matter. You can do the full succession even in a small 4x8 bed. Just scale down your seeding rates accordingly. Another question is whether you can do this without compost. You can, but it will be slower.
The compost accelerates the process significantly. If you do not have compost, focus on making some. Even a small compost bin can produce enough for inoculation purposes. You do not need vast quantities, just enough to sprinkle a thin layer every few months. Now, let me talk about what to expect. The first time you try this technique, the improvement will be noticeable, but not necessarily dramatic. Your soil will be better, your plants will grow well, but the real magic happens when you repeat the technique year after year. The second year, the improvement is bigger. The third year, even bigger. By year 3 or 4, you have soil that performs at an elite level, soil that holds moisture perfectly, soil that provides balanced nutrition without fertilizer, soil that resists compaction, soil that grows incredible plants. I have soil in my garden that I have treated this way for 8 years now. When visitors dig into it, they cannot believe what they are seeing. It is dark chocolate brown. It smells sweet. It is full of earthworms. You can squeeze it and it holds together. You can crumble it and it falls apart beautifully. It drains well but stays moist. And the plants that grow in it are magnificent, big, healthy, productive. That soil started as hard clay. But with these 5 soil saviors and the layering technique, it has become something extraordinary. This is possible for you too. It doesn't matter what your soil looks like now. It doesn't matter if it's clay or sand or somewhere in between. It doesn't matter if it's tired and depleted. These plants and this technique can transform it. You just need to start. Plant one cover crop, see what happens. Then layer another. Add compost. Keep going. Season by season, your soil will change. And as your soil changes, your entire garden will change. You will grow better food. You will have fewer problems. You will spend less money on inputs. And you will have the deep satisfaction of knowing you built something real, something alive, something that will keep giving for years to come. So here is my challenge to you. Pick one bed, one area of your garden. Try this technique. Follow the steps I laid out. Layer those cover crops. Add that compost. Watch what happens. Document it with photos if you like. And then come back and tell me about it. Leave a comment below. Share your results. I want to hear your story. I want to know how your soil transformed, and I want to celebrate your success with you. Before we finish, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from? What part of the world are you gardening in? Drop a comment and let me know. I love hearing from gardeners everywhere. We are all connected by our love of growing things, by our desire to work with the earth, by our hope for abundance and beauty. No matter where you are part of this community, and I'm grateful for that. If you want to learn more about building healthy soil naturally, I have another video you should watch. It's called Don't Compost Dry Leaves Until You Watch This 60 Days Experiment. In that video, I show you the surprising truth about composting dry leaves and what actually happens over 60 days. No guesswork, no mistakes, just proven results you can replicate in your own garden. Check it out after you finish here. Now, get out there and start planting these soil saviors. Your soil is waiting, your garden is ready, and your best harvest is just beginning. Happy gardening! I will see you in the next video.